Look at all the arrows. Let me draw them all in again. White has knight, knight, bishop, and then the rook is going to come in. So he's going to have 4 on this point. But at the moment, black has 4 defending it. Rook, bishop, knight, queen. Defending your strong point. But really, if you've got so many pieces defending it, is it really a strong point? Rook a d1. Now the queen is putting pressure. Every single white piece is putting pressure on this point. It's kind of ridiculous. It just goes to show that maybe this is not the opening for Gary. Welcome to the World Championship match. The score at the moment is 5-3. To Karpov, he's won 2 games. Gary is yet to win a game. This video will cover game 9 of the match. If it's your first time here, hello, my name is William. I make chess videos, and I hope you find this one to be highly valuable. Anatoly Karpov has white, Gary Kasparov has black. The game began. d4, d5, c4, e6, knight f3, c5. We have the Tarrasch defense. Karpov chooses to take back. How to get this bishop out? You could play e3, but Karpov plays g3. Knight f6, bishop g2, bishop e7, castle, castle. It's move 7. Both sides have already castled. White now plays knight c3, putting pressure on this pawn. Black plays knight c6, putting pressure on this pawn. Bishop g5, perhaps taking this knight in the future, so then knight and queen, but also bishop. Put pressure on black's center pawn. C takes d4. By the way, just want to show you, theory has changed since 1984. c4 might be a good move, so then white doesn't have all this pressure on this pawn. One line could be knight e5, because if you take, and then the queen is now putting pressure on this pawn. Black can play bishop e6, just holding his position. And then there's a cool move here, f4. Black is holding this way, white is holding this way. We have a cool knight on e5. Things have changed. Gary played c takes d4 just like he did in game 7. Knight takes d4, h6. Kicking the bishop away to e3, rook e8. Always good to put a rook on a half open file. Queen b3. Knight, bishop, queen all attack the center point. Knight a5, attacking the queen. So then the queen no longer focuses on that point. Queen comes back to c2. Bishop g4. Attacking this pawn, but perhaps finding a way to come round to g6. Another option is actually to play bishop b4. I didn't mention this in game 7, but I'm mentioning it now. The point of bishop b4 is perhaps black can take this knight, so there's less pressure on this pawn. Also, the rook is now facing the bishop, perhaps lining up a sacrificial idea in the future. If you play rook d1, putting pressure here, black can play a move like a6 or bishop g4. a6, the point is to stop this knight coming to b5. So then this rook faces that pawn. So a6 and the game goes on. Now the bishop can come out, the rook can come to c8. After queen c2, Gary played bishop g4. Knight f5. Defended by the queen. Knight looks superb here. Black can still play this idea with bishop b4, attacking this knight. Rook c8 played. Karpov now deviates. He changes from game 7. He plays bishop d4. Bishop sits very well in the center, defending the knight, attacking that knight. Bishop c5. Gary understands. Karpov's bishop is very strong, so he offers a trade. Take, take. Knight back to e3, and look at the focus point. Knight, knight, bishop, and potentially rook, or attack this point. By the way, just want to show you a tactic. b4 doesn't work. Attacking rook and knight, because black can play bishop takes knight. Attacking the queen. Once the queen takes the bishop, rook takes knight. And after this, queen takes. Black is winning. Bishop takes bishop, rook takes, knight e3. So much pressure on this point. Bishop e6. Look at all the arrows. Let me draw them all in again. White has knight, knight, bishop, and then the rook is going to come in. So he's going to have 4 on this point. But at the moment, black has 4 defending it. Rook, bishop, knight, queen, defending your strong point. But really, if you've got so many pieces defending it, is it really a strong point? Rook a d1. Full pressure on d5. Queen c8. Gary gets out of the way, putting queen and rook lining it up against the queen. Queen a4. So white's queen gets out of the way. So then this knight can take this pawn next. Rook d8. Black defends it. Rook d3. Getting another piece in the attack. So then it's like knight, knight, rook, rook, bishop. Maybe even a queen can somehow get in the attack. a6. Rook d1. Knight c4 is a great move from Gary because he attacks this pawn, but also offers a trade. Black really has to start relieving the pressure. He's got to trade pieces or else he is just going to get crushed. Knight takes c4 played and rook takes c4, attacking the queen. By the way, I'm really glad this didn't happen. Knight takes d5. Watch what happens. Everything gets hoovered off. Take, 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 take. At the moment, white is winning. Rook for knight, but the knight just comes back. Knight b6. Forking. Queen and rook. The queen moves to defend the rook. Take, take, and check out this position. Well, there's not much to check out. 2 queens each, 6 pawns each. Very likely to be a draw. So I'm really glad this didn't happen. Knight c4. Karpov takes this knight. Rook takes. Attacking the queen goes up. Now the queen is putting pressure. Every single white piece is putting pressure on this point. It's kind of ridiculous. It just goes to show that maybe this is not the opening for Gary. The way Karpov has played this, it's move 23. He's got every single piece attacking what should be your strongest point, but really it's your weakest point. Rook c5. Good move. Attacking queen at the same time defending your pawn. Queen b6. Coming into the black position, putting pressure on this pawn. Rook d7. Another defensive move from Gary, defending both pawns. Rook d4. This is a good strategy in these isolated pawn openings. By isolated, I mean that pawn is just all by itself. You want to put a piece on a square that stops this pawn from moving. So it is like a sitting duck for the future. Stop this pawn from moving, it can be a target. Well, it's been a target all game. Rook d4, good move. Queen c7. Gary offers a trade. Anatoly accepts. Take, take. Karpov now played h3. Notice he doesn't cash in, he does not take this pawn, even though he's got every single piece attacking it. Knight, bishop, and the 2 rooks, because it allows black an active opportunity. Let's see what happens if he cashes in wrongly. Take, 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 take. White's a pawn up. Good deal, right? Wrong. Black has a way in, rook c2. Double attack. Gary is going to get one of his pawns back, and it's very likely to be a draw in this rook endgame. So no, Karpov plays a good move, just keeping up the pressure. And by that, I mean you just play a move that doesn't cash in. h3. Why is this a good move? You're just controlling an extra square. h5. Black controls this square. a3. You're controlling this square. g6. You're controlling the light squares along with this bishop. e3. Another good move. Controlling this square. Maybe the king can come in. King g7, king h2. No, the king goes the other way. Rook c4, offering a trade, trying to relieve the pressure. This is what Gary did when he offered a queen trade before. Bishop f3. b5, getting space. King g2, king just slides over. Rook c5. Defending, Karpov now takes. Take with a rook. He cannot play this, because this actually allows white in with rook d6, putting pressure on this pawn. There's no good way to defend it. You could play bishop c8, but that's quite passive. If you played a5, then rook b6, we have a new target. If Gary did this, then it allows white in. That's why after rook takes c4, black played take. So we still have 3 things on it. Karpov still doesn't take. He actually offers a rook trade. Rook d4. After rook takes c4, white now has 3. Do you remember before? He had 5 pieces on it. Knight, bishop, rook, rook, queen. The queens came off. So then 4 pieces on it. A pair of rooks came off, so now it's 3 pieces on it. And he still cannot cash in, because this allows black an active chance. If you play take, rook c2, attacking this pawn. If you go b4, take, rook c3. This pawn will drop, but in a cool way. White actually can play a4, and after take you go rook a5, double attack. Now why did Karpov not go for this? Because at the highest level, check this out. Push, king comes closer, rook b3, rook a4, g5, let's say, getting space, take. And at the highest level, when you have 4 against 3, it is very likely to be a draw. Karpov probably didn't want to go for this. So he plays rook d4. It's like the pressure is all disappearing now. King f8, bishop e2, attacking the rook. Black goes for an exchange, take. And it looks like Gary has equalized. It is move 36. The pressure has totally disappeared. It's now completely equal. Gary has defended very well, but it must have been very tough to defend a position like this. Are there any fireworks left in this game? Yes, because as you know, in this video series, I'm going through the victories between Karpov and Kasparov. King e7, king closer to the center. Knight a2, a way to reroute, because the knight can go to b4. Bishop c8, just defending it anyway, because after knight b4, the knight sits well here, attacking both pawns. King comes to d6, also stopping this knight coming in, and defending the pawn. f3, a useful move. Push a pawn, control this square. Perhaps white can push. Knight g8. It's going to find a new spot. h4, controlling the square. Knight h6, king f2, knight f5. Here we go. So a really cool way for black to reroute this knight. It's putting pressure on d4 and g3, and in a position like this, black is not worse. But coming up, if you've never seen this game before, there's going to be a brilliant move in the endgame, which is going to absolutely shock you. Knight c2, defending. f6, controlling. 2 squares, bishop d3. Attacking this knight, but it's defended by the bishop. g5 played. One option was to just play knight e7, and maybe the game would have ended in a draw. But Gary played g5. He's not scared, and rightly so. But it does allow this imbalance now. And by that, I mean, it's going to be knight against bishop. So then Karpov can try and somehow create something. And that's what he does in this game. Bishop takes f5. Take, knight e3, attacking the bishop. Bishop goes to b1, b4. Notice, almost all of white's pawns are on light squares except this one. G takes h4. White just played capture right, wrong. You see, I mean, this game is absolutely stunning. I never knew the full game until I was analysing it to create this video. But there's an absolutely brilliant move here. And if you see this idea, then congrats to you. You don't actually take the pawn. Because by not taking the pawn, you actually give a way in for your king. White now plays the absolutely brilliant knight g2. I remember the first time I saw this, and I knew I was never ever going to forget this. Knight g2, the point is, you're going to force a decision here. Take. Now the king has a way in. It's very important the king can find a way to get at that pawn, then he's got a way in. By the way, if you pushed, then knight f4. This pawn is not going anywhere. White attacks both. So if you play bishop f5 to defend this one, then you take this. Then you go g4. And then this pawn is going to drop. Knight g2. Take. White is temporarily a pawn down, but he finds a way into the black position. King e6 coming closer. Knight f4, check. King f5. Knight takes h5. King e6, check. Attacking this pawn. So he's gone pawn grabbing. Well, he's got his pawn back. Come back with a check. Attacking this pawn. The king has to defend it. Then the king can come in. It is very important, as I have highlighted here. Those 2 pawns are not on the board, then the king actually has a way in. Bishop c2, king h5, bishop d1, king g6, trading pawn for pawn. King e7. Gary chooses to defend this pawn, but at the cost of this pawn dropping. Knight takes d5 check. King e6, knight c7 check. Gary is getting forked. King d7. There was another option. King d6 was better, because it just means he's a bit closer to this pawn. As you will see very soon, this detail matters. King d7. Knight takes pawn. Bishop takes f3, and king takes f6. 3 against 1. White is 2 pawns up. White is completely winning. But check out this fascinating detail coming up. The king comes up, then up, then up. Black is very close to a draw. King comes up, king d5, king comes up, and here we go. King attacks the bishop has to move, and then king e3. That's how close chess is. King c4. If black can play king b3, this pawn is going to drop, then it might be a draw. Knight c5, Karpov stops that. Knight back, can't come here, and he's still 2 pawns up. Bishop c6, knight d3. Bishop g2. By the way, if king b3, king d2, just retreating, because even though you dropped the pawn, you're only a pawn up now. King c3. Totally boxing the king in. King defends this pawn. This knight is going to come here to assist the advance. And that's it. Bishop g2 played. Knight e5, check. King c3. Knight g6. Finding a way to assist this advance. King up. Knight e7. Bishop back. Knight f5. Even in the endgame, be aware of tactics. If it's white's move again, he's going to go knight d6 check, winning the bishop. He moves the bishop. Knight d6 check. King b3. Black can't take it because after knight takes b5, he is now 3 pawns up. King a4. Knight d6. In this position, black resigned. If black takes, you just run it. Run. There's no way to stop it. You have to give up your bishop for the pawn. And then after this, that's it. So this is how Karpov took a 3-0 lead against Kasparov. Thanks a lot for watching all the way until the end. If you enjoyed this video, why not give it a like and subscribe to the channel at the same time to see more Karpov-Kasparov videos. If you press the bell, that means YouTube will let you know when I release a new video. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you later.